The whole ball, up to the last quadrille, was for Kitty an enchanted vision of delighted colors, sounds, and motions. She only sat down when she felt too tired and begged for a rest. But as she was dancing the last quadrille with one of the tiresome young men who she could not refuse, she chanced to be vis-a-vis with Vronsky and Anna. She had not been near Anna again since the beginning of the evening, and now again she saw her suddenly quite new and surprising. She saw in her the signs of that excitement of success she knew so well in herself. She saw that she was intoxicated with the delighted admiration she was exciting. She knew that feeling and knew its signs, and saw them in Anna. Saw the quivering, flashing light in her eyes, and the smile of happiness and excitement unconsciously playing on her lips, and the deliberate grace, precision, and lightness of her movements. Who, she asked herself, all or one? She obeyed with external liveliness the peremptory shouts of Korsunsky, starting them all into the Grand Ronde and then into the Chaîne. And at the same time, she kept watch with a growing pang in her heart. No, it's not the adoration of the crowd that's intoxicated her, but the adoration of one. And that one, can it be he? Every time he spoke to Anna, the joyous light flashed into her eyes, and the smile of happiness curved her red lips. She seemed to make an effort to control herself, not to show these signs of delight, but they came out on her face of themselves. But what of him? Kitty looked at him and was filled with terror. What was pictured so clearly to Kitty in the mirror of Anna's face she saw in him. What had become of his always self-possessed, resolute manner and the carelessly serene expression of his face? Now, every time he turned to her, he bent his head as though he would have fallen at her feet, and in his eyes there was nothing but humble submission and dread. I would not offend you, his eyes seemed every time to be saying, but I want to save myself and I don't know how. On his face was a look such as Kitty had never seen before. They were speaking of common acquaintances, keeping up the most trivial conversation, but to Kitty it seemed that every word they said was determining their fate and hers. Nothing but the stern discipline of her bringing up supported her and forced her to do what was expected of her, that is, to dance, to answer questions, to talk, even to smile. But before the mazurka, when they were beginning to rearrange the chairs and a few couples moved out of the smaller rooms into the big room, a moment of despair and horror came for Kitty. She had refused 5 partners, and now she was not dancing the mazurka. She had not even a hope of being asked for it because she was so successful in society that the idea would never occur to anyone that she had remained disengaged till now. She would have to tell her mother she felt ill and go home. But she had not the strength to do this. She saw that they felt themselves alone in that crowded room. Oh no, whoops. Here we go. She felt crushed. She went to the furthest end of the little drawing room and sank into a low chair. "Kitty, what is it?" said Countess Nordston, stepping noiselessly over the carpet toward her. "I don't understand it." Kitty's lower lip began to quiver. She got up quickly. "Kitty, you're not dancing the mazurka?" No, said Kitty in a voice shaking with tears. No one but she herself understood her position. No one knew that she had just refused the man who perhaps she loved, and refused him because she'd put her faith in another. Countess Nordston found Korzorski, with whom she was to dance the mazurka, and told him to ask Kitty. Kitty danced the first couple, and luckily for her, she had not to talk because Korzensky was all the time running about directing the figure. Vronsky and Anna sat almost opposite her. She saw them with her long-sighted eyes, and saw them, too, close by, when they met in the figures. And the more she saw them, the more convinced was she that her unhappiness was complete. She saw that they felt themselves alone in that crowded room, and on Vronsky's face, always so firm and independent, she saw that look that had struck her of bewilderment and humble submissiveness, like the expression of an intelligent dog when it has done wrong. Anna smiled, and her smile was reflected by him. She grew thoughtful, and he became serious. Some supernatural force drew Kitty's eyes to Anna's face. She was fascinating in her simple black dress. Fascinating were her round arms with their bracelets. Fascinating was her firm neck with its thread of pearls. Fascinating the straying curls of her loose hair. Fascinating the graceful, light movements of her little feet and hands. Fascinating was that lovely face in its eagerness, but there was something terrible and cruel in her fascination. Kitty admired her more than ever, and more acute was her suffering. Kitty felt overwhelmed, and her face showed it. When Vronsky saw her coming across her in the mazurka, he did not at once recognize her. She was so changed. "Delightful ball," he said to her for the sake of saying something. "Yes," she answered.